you can see from this example that I've gone in now, and everywhere I had a C shadow, a form shadow, and a cast shadow, I've gone in now and filled that in with hatching. I didn't go all the way across. To set up the objects themselves, it's important to go in and do your hatching. And you outline your shadows in this technique. The whole idea is to make everything very graphic. And there are some items that weren't present on my box drawing, so I've gone in and put shadows for them as well. This I used the middle of my light to find the angle, and then just estimated how big to make the shadow. I like the idea of having them there because it keeps our eye from zooming off the page. It creates a vertical. This other vertical is keeping our eye from going off the page here. And of course my drapery, I know that if the light's above, I'm going to have a shadow underneath this valance. My lamp, I put a little, one side is going to be a little darker than the other, because that's my whole idea. My whole concept here is that I'm going to create contrast in the foreground with my shadows, and then my lightest values are going to be on the top, the tops of everything. The plan is working. This one, we talked about that this side isn't facing the light. It's a B, but it's probably a dark B. So I ended up putting a little shadow in there too. So you have that kind of flexibility as long as it's basically consistent. And the little floor plan is just like the little floor plan that we started with, that it has the shadow all around the bed, the two side tables, and at the seating at the end, and so on, and the shadow to the side of the wardrobe. If you were to follow this plan exactly, this is what you'd have. You'd have shadow side all along this way, and this as well, shadow against the bedside table, cast shadow underneath. See how it's going from dark to light this way, dark to light that way, so that the part that's closest to us has the most contrast. Here we go dark to light this way, so we can finish up a little light over on this end. This is what I was talking about here as well. This is a B plane, like this B plane, but we're going to also have a little bit of a cast shadow as well, just to liven things up a bit. All of our top planes are the lightest. I was talking about the contrast between top and side, our shadow side. That helps to make the bed pop. And then you can put a little bit of shadow in the corners, depending on how light or dark of an impression you want to make overall. But you start with your lights and then begin to introduce your darker planes. And here's our shadow here. And this we put in as a B plane, so it's like these planes. And this I did go ahead and make that shadow because I like that contrast front and side. And our shadows, we put the B all the way in the back. Rather than make it too dark, it's just a B in the back, I decided. And then a B here. So I'm not asking you to make this diagram. You have this to follow and this to look at. We're going to just get our gray markers out, work according to the plan, and as soon as we think it's not working, we need a little bit more contrast in one place than we can have following this plan. Then that's what you do to make your bed as the focal point stand out the most. In rendering, please make sure that you have a lot of paper in behind your rendering before you begin. Remember that the ink is going to go through the page, so you don't want to have it go onto your other drawing underneath. Also have your references nearby and your light and dark value plan for the geometric shapes. That's going to be a big help. And the drawing that I have under this where you mapped out your plan for your values. On my reference, I can see that this is quite rounded. So instead of starting with the 5 right at the top, I'm going to put a stroke of the 30% in first, and just to help roll this over. And then, while that's still wet, hopefully, I can throw in my 50 and move across. Now, this is drapery, so if I like, I can go down this way. But whatever direction you choose, do it consistently. Some of the last assignment, many people were just going in any old direction, and it was hard to make sense of what it was you were after. So if you decide this is the direction you're going, then you can clean it up with a little bit of a horizontal line. This is carpet, so I can zigzag a little bit. But whatever decision you make about that, you should follow through and keep it going the same way if you can. Okay, now I have my 70, that was my 50. Now I'm going to put my 70 underneath to lift the bed up a bit, give it more contrast. I'm going to put a little 70 accent there, a few little accents down below. And if I find there's too much of a contrast here, I can just throw a little more of the 50 in. And the side of this is round as well, so I'm going to start with the 30, wet it with the 30, and then use my, I keep forgetting, my values are percentages. And I use my 7 to put a little shadow underneath. And if I think that's too strong, then I can put a little of that 50 back in. Okay, and then the front, I want that to be a B value. So you remember that your B value, you're using your 3 and your 5. But I might start it off with the 1 because I want that little transition in between top and side to be soft, because this is a soft furnishing. So that was the 1, and hopefully while it's still wet I can go in with the 30, or the 3 for you would be 3. And then I will put some 5 at the top here. Not all the way across, but just enough to give that some value. Now the top of it, I'm going to wet it with the 1. I'm going to leave a gap though. If I can leave a gap, a little bit of a gap. I'll see if it looks too strange. If it looks strange, I'll cover it up. I wish there was some way to make rules for this sort of thing, but there really isn't. You just have a plan and then be willing to do something else if that doesn't look good. So already I'm thinking this is just way too pale. I'm going to put a few more accents in there. Okay, and then there's shadow underneath my pillows, so I'm going to put that in just with a 5 because the pillows are in the light. So, and I've got some hatching which will really help. Now this is a 3 and a 5 because it's the same plane as this and this. So that's another thing that you're doing. You're looking for similar values based on where things are in relation to the light. I'm going to put a little bit of that in too. That won't hurt, it's still wet, so, and put a little 70 just to have the top pop up a little bit. And the side is going to be shadow, so that's 5 and 7. I think, judging from what I saw in the last assignment, there's a tendency for everyone to just put down one stroke of marker and that be enough. It isn't. You have to go sometimes over something a couple of times in order to get the marker strokes to look good, not too complex, but to look good. And just going with one stroke won't do it. This is a front plane also, so. And there are going to be reflections from the ceiling, the draperies, so you put that in as well. That'll help.